The mystical truths in religions East and West are brought to light again and made relevant for our time by Elizabeth Clare Prophet, world-renowned author and spiritual teacher.
Would you tell us how the life of Jesus relates to our life today?
The life that God has given to us is a life that is intended to be used by our soul to attain that reunion with the inner self. All else is extraneous and subject to that one goal. If we don't make it in this life, we come again. The soul puts on a new set of coats of skins or a new forcefield and returns once again to the scenes of earth. This is why earth is so familiar to us. It's because we've been evolving here for thousands and thousands of years. Life, then, is the path of initiation. Jesus, in his great love for the people of earth, came to show us how we could follow the path of initiation and precisely in one lifetime, one concluding lifetime, return to the heart of God as he did in the ritual of the ascension. When we see, then, the life of Jesus as a life marking the stations of our own individual initiation, we look at the birth of the Christ as the sign of the birth of our own Christ consciousness, when we determine to manifest the Father, Mother, God, and to bring forth that Christ light. We have the decision of Jesus to be about his Father's business. We have his decision to discourse with the doctors in the temple to expound upon the law. And then from the age of 12 to 30, he is preparing for his final 3 years. One of the first initiations is the ritual of baptism, a very important initiation in which there is the cleansing of that substance or energy misqualified and the consecration of the soul to the will of God. We have his transfiguration before the disciples. We see his crucifixion, his resurrection. And between the transfiguration and the crucifixion, he works many miracles so-called as demonstrations of the science which we must one day prove. The fact of the matter is that we must affirm that we are being transfigured every day, that we are experiencing the resurrection every day, that we are ascending even by a tiny, tiny increment. Each day we are drawing closer and closer to that energy force field that is the white fire core of the atom of self. The mantras which we were considering last week continue with this acceleration of consciousness. When these heart, head, and hand decrees are given in order, one finds that with each successive mantra, one has a greater degree of light, and as one becomes more sensitive, one actually feels this light building within his own body. One can begin to feel the burning in the heart, which the disciples felt on the road to Emmaus when they were near the Master but did not recognize him. The burning energy of the heart is the expansion of the threefold flame, and it is the sacred fire actually consuming the misqualified energies of fear and hatred and impure motive which often surround the heart. The one then pursuing the initiation of the transfiguration gives the following mantra. I am changing all my garments, old ones, for the bright new day. With the sun of understanding I am shining all the way. I am light within, without, I am light is all about. Fill me, free me, glorify me, seal me, heal me, purify me. Until transfigured they describe me, I am shining like the sun, I am shining like the sun. There is a tremendous joy in this mantra of the transfiguration because it represents an influx of light whereby the very cells, the physical cells of our bodies, begin to be filled with light and to have impurities, physical as well as mental and emotional toxins, flushed out. The joy of giving these mantras is a joy of becoming God.
Where is the place for right living?
Right living is one of the requirements of the Eightfold Path of the Buddha. And right living means being obedient to the inner self. For thousands of years, people have rebelled against the laws of God because they have felt that they were imposed from without as a yoke and as a burden. And this rebellion against that which is outside of oneself is really the folly, the ultimate folly of rebelling against one's own being, one's own true self. Moses received the 10 Commandments. Jesus gave us a new commandment. We have received the code of living from all of the great gurus. Confucius' teaching was a very practical wisdom for everyday life. This is really what the great masters have come to show us, how to live on earth and yet to remain in God. And it was to follow a few simple precepts. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul and all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. So right living means being obedient to our own individual religion, the way that we have been brought up, whether we are followers of Mohammed or Zarathustra or Confucius, Lao Tzu, or Mother Mary. We must remember that the basic precepts taught to us of honesty and right living are a proper and necessary matrix for this science of alchemy that comes with the Holy Spirit.
So the science of the spoken word is in no way a substitute for moral rectitude.
Well, in fact, if the science of the spoken word is used without the correction of our way of life, it will not be effective, because the law will not work for those who are out of alignment with that law. If we steal, if we kill, if we partake of substances that we ought not to partake of, then we find ourselves depriving ourselves of the benefits of this pure energy of the Word.
Is the science of the spoken word useful in taking care of all the little habits and negative traits most of us are plagued by?
You know, that's a very interesting question. Lord Maitreya, known as the coming Buddha, answered that question in an article which he wrote called The Overcoming of Fear Through Decrees. He said, Paul expressed the dilemma of these subconscious motivations and momentums when he said, "The good that I would, I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do." Maitreya says, what can we do to protect ourselves from evil intent and evil action, which we find manifesting within ourselves and in the world at large? And he answers the question by talking about the discipline of the controlled use of energy through the science of the spoken word. Maitreya compares the momentum of habit to a coil of an electromagnet wound around its core. The number of times that the coil is wound around the core determines the power of the habit and its momentum. The breaking of that momentum can be accomplished through the use of the science of the spoken word, and the number of times that the habit is engaged in determines its strength. Correspondingly, as we give the mantras, we break the power of habit, and Maitreya says instead of unwinding the coil turn by turn, we break right through the entire force field of that coil, and the habit is broken by the power of God through the science of the spoken word.
What exactly is meant by the term initiation?
Initiation is the testing of the soul. It is God's way of determining how we will use the gift of free will. Temptation comes before us, we have to make a decision. To walk the path of honor or to walk the path of the compromise of truth. As soon as we demonstrate that we are just stewards of the law and of the abundance of God, God gives us more. He makes us caretakers of others and of larger fields of energy, more abundance, more supply, more responsibility on earth. Every day we are receiving initiations, and every day we are sending a message to our I Am Presence of whether or not we are worthy to be counted as joint heirs of the Christ consciousness. Are we worthy to inherit this Christ mind, this mind of the Buddha, this mind of Confucius? It is ours for the overcoming, but we have to pay a price, and that price is to follow the inner law and to be obedient to the inner voice.
So one progresses on the path by demonstrating one's faithfulness and one's courage and so forth.
If thou wilt be faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many. The path of initiation is the only way that God has of determining whether we are ready for an increase of light, of the Holy Spirit, of graces, and of the keys. And there are inner keys that are transferred to the individual by the ascended masters and by his own inner self as he passes his tests. And these keys are the very keys that we would have, the keys to the mastery of the science of matter as well as the science of spirit.
Such as?
Well, the multiplication of the loaves and fishes. We have talked about a mantra that could be used to attain the abundance of God. But there are further keys behind that mantra from which that mantra comes. These are not lawful for us to give on the radio or even to write in books, because this is the key that is imparted to the individual by the master himself. There is an old saying that goes, "When the pupil is ready, the teacher appears." When we show that we are ready, because we have been faithful over a few things, we have been willing to discipline our lives and our energies, then we find that the ascended masters approach us. And as they come, either through a book, through a person, through a teaching, through hearing about this science of the spoken word, then we begin to pursue the master. We begin to say, I am going to do what that master says because I want to be like him. And so we begin demonstrating these techniques, and we find that in our own heart of hearts, God speaks to us and gives us the key of life.
Is everybody being initiated?
Everyone is being initiated. Earth is a schoolroom. The moment you get out of bed in the morning, your initiation begins, and it doesn't stop till you retire at night. Everybody is making the decision hour by hour to be or not to be in reality, in truth, or in God.
That everybody who's being initiated is on the path.
Well, the path means the path of the ascension. Now, that is the goal of life for everyone, but there are a number of tests and a number of challenges that must be met before one can say one is actually a part of the path of the overcomers who are tied to the ascended masters and who are daily pursuing the law of balancing of karma and fulfilling one's dharma or one's duty to be oneself.
Thank you very much.
This is a presentation of the Summit Lighthouse, an international spiritual organization dedicated to universal enlightenment. Founded in 1958, the Summit Lighthouse is a beacon of truth to thousands worldwide and a leader in New Thought spirituality.